Enterprise sales is one of the hardest things for early stage founders to wrap their head around and figure out a go-to-market strategy that's actually effective for them. And the reason for this is because all the traditional advice doesn't work when you're an early stage company trying to get your first customers. But there is a solution, and you're going to learn today how to spend $1,500 to make $1 million in ARR in a single night. This is one of those growth tactics that's really social engineering. And today I'm hosting my friend Colin, who's going to share all the information around this. So what you're going to be learning is basically how to host these dinners that you invite your target customer to, how to build hype around them so that there's this feeling of scarcity, the exact cold outreach, emails, and LinkedIn posts that you can send to get these people in. He's going to share subject lines and the actual text to include within the emails. And these emails get like 80% open rates. It's the most insane thing I've ever seen. And then we're also going to learn how to partner with agencies and use them as a distribution vector for your software. And why this is basically like getting a sales team without hiring anybody. And this works super effectively because all the incentives are aligned for everybody that's involved. And this episode is brought to you by Talent Fiber. If you're trying to hire growth marketing specialists, this is where you need to go to find them. All these people understand how to use AI in their workflows, and you can get Google ad specialists, Facebook ad specialists, SEO specialists. Whatever it is you're looking for, you can find the best global talent to join your team. And Talent Fiber is different than a headhunting agency. The biggest difference is that you don't pay a fee and then they bounce and you never hear from them again. They basically function as an outsourced HR department. They handle employee happiness, education, and also offer the benefits they're looking for, like the equivalent of a 401k or health insurance, which allows them to find the best talent within that geography. It's like a magnet for it. And if the person doesn't work out, they'll find a new replacement for you within weeks. For all my companies, I hire my teams through Talent Fiber. It's some of the hardest working employees I've ever worked with, and every one of them is absolutely cracked. Like, I can't even express how insane they are. The person who is editing this video right now, as an example, is one of the best creative people I've ever worked with. Go to talentfiber.com to learn more, and let's get started with today's show. Colin, what's good, man? How you doing?
Good. How are you, Cody?
I'm good, brother. Dude, I'm so stoked to have you on today after our last conversation. I feel like a lot of the stuff we talk about on this show is really like focused on the digital side.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I was just talking to a friend over the weekend. They're trying to spin up their whole like conference game. And I used to be like very anti-physical marketing until we made conferences work, and then we made direct mail work. And like you guys, I think, run this playbook on the partnership side that is super, super fascinating. Just for high level for people who are tuning in, what's kind of your role? What does that look like? And like, what are you, I guess like, what is this partnership arbitrage that you're seeing within the e-commerce space?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm director of marketing at LiveRecover. I handle all of our agency partnerships. I also do some event stuff for us too. I think the biggest thing is there's a huge push right now to basically pay influencers or pay people already in the space, $5,000 or $6,000 to basically be the figurehead and host the dinner themselves. You get the list. It's a classic, like, all right, hosted by, sponsored by, and it's probably two or three SaaS brands. I think SaaS companies, if they really just gave it a little bit of effort and maybe like a week and a half of preparation, they would be able to push this themselves for a total cost of like $1,500, and then you actually just reach out to the SaaS partner yourself, someone that you're working with, and then you guys split that. You're all in $3,000 split between a partner.
So for context with this, like you guys host dinners, right? Is like kind of the structure. So it's like, okay, you go get two title sponsors. We're going to host this dinner. We're going to invite our target, ICP to this dinner. Basically the target, the sponsors are paying for the dinner or doing a portion of the dinner. And then that basically turns into a lead list that you can share with kind of everybody that's sponsoring this. Is that what it looks like kind of from like the 40,000 foot view?
Yeah, I think I think there's more opportunities to not just do dinners. I mean, that's like a whole separate conversation.
Like
I
throwing
think
parties or something like that.
Parties, but I also think like dinners are a little bit played out. But if you want a really intimate scene, nothing can beat like a 15 to 18 person dinner where it's like really great food, ideally sushi, because people can just like pick at it. And then you also have that collaboration thing where it's like, if you guys split a roll, then that's a little conversation thing. You're like, oh, I love that roll. Oh, let's get another one of those. Like there's a certain like nuance to like what you're ordering. You don't want to host this at like a barbecue place and then everybody's just gross with their hands and you're like, oh, this was probably a mistake. Nobody can shake hands anymore. Nobody really wants to like move around. Like there's a couple things you need to really get down first.
Totally. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So there's some strategy with that. I mean, I want to get into all the tactical components of this and kind of how to structure these, and also like how you're figuring out the partnership negotiations with the brands, and then also like who are you, how are you sending these invites or getting these people like to actually show up to these events. But just to talk about the impact that you see with this. So like, okay, you host a dinner, costs you $1,500, right? You have 20 target customer ICP show up. Like, first off, like, why are they even showing up? Is it just because it's like they want to go to this event? And then what do you see from an outcome standpoint? Like, how many of those deals do you close? And kind of what's the I don't know if we even put a number on this, but like the ROAS or return on investment from hosting these types of events.
Yeah, I would say there's two caveats to this. You want to really try to focus these events on top tier cities. So really just focusing on New York City, LA, the cream of the crop cities where you can populate these types of events. The flip side of this is you should ideally have a customer in one of these cities, but then you place that customer as the figurehead host of the dinner. So you approach your longtime customer and you say, hey man, I've really loved working with you. You've been the best. I know if we've crushed this for you. Would you be free 3 weeks from now to host a dinner? We'll pay for the whole thing. We'll get some awesome people you can network in. We just love to partner with you on this, and then we'll get a ton of brands you can talk to. You can talk strategy. Would love for you to also share your story and just how you've grown in the space as well. If you have a good relationship with your brands, 99% of the time they'll say yes to that. So like, all of this just comes back to like, you have to have a foundational relationship. You have to be willing to build these relationships for like a long-term horizon. You can't just be like, all right, I'm going to pick this random guy and he's going to come in. It has to be somebody you can know and trust. So that's like the first step of this. And then the flip side of this is the ICP value to you has to make sense. So my goal for these is I really don't want smaller brands there. I don't really want $1 to $5 million ARR brands there. It just doesn't make sense from a CAC standpoint. I really am focusing on the $50 to $100 million enterprise Shopify brands because the CAC payback period just works so well. Because your cost is, let's call it $1,500, but your payback period for a brand that's $50 million in the Shopify space for your service, hypothetically, you'd get payback within like maybe like
days,
a month and a half, 60, maybe
totally.
a month and a half, something like that.
Totally.
So you can just keep pushing this cycle out. And now you see that like, hypothetically, if you keep doing this, you could just rinse and repeat. And with cities that have really large TAMs, New York City, LA, you can just keep doing this and basically never run out of people to invite.
Fascinating. So, I mean, how often are you running these? So say, you pick, do you bounce around from city to city? Like, what does that look like from a logistics standpoint?
Yeah, I think it's really good to bounce around from city to city. It also is important that you have boots on ground, hypothetically, in these cities, because traveling to and from can get really expensive. You got to think about hotel, flights, all the above. Ideally, you're kind of bouncing around and making it more of a road show. Like, I love New York City, LA, Salt Lake is a really good one. People sleep on Salt Lake City, Utah. It's like a crazy startup scene.
You sent me the list. I don't know if we can include that in the show notes or if, it's basically like the top 10 cities in the US that by GMV, so like total basic like market for e-commerce. I was shocked that SLC was on that list. And there's a couple other ones on there as well that are just like fascinating to think about them. I mean, Austin's one that kind of makes sense just with all the influencer kind of industry that has moved there, and they're like a natural, they go and sell a D2C product like on top of their audience. But some of the other ones were just like, again, fascinating. But Okay, so bouncing around city to city. I mean, your list of 10. Are you just like hitting that like once a month? You're going to each of those places and basically hosting an event, or are you doing it quarterly, or what's that cadence look like?
Ideally, you're trying to do it once a month. And this is kind of like the big thing where you need to make sure your outreach list is super clean and then also segmented by location. So you don't really want to keep blasting every single month New York City owners. Like you're going to kind of exhaust that and it's going to get pretty annoying because they're going to be like, oh, cool, another one. You kind of want to bounce it around, make it more exciting. So if like 1 month it's New York City, next month you got Salt Lake. Month after that, you have LA. And then the cream of the crop for all of this is like you take photos and document this whole thing. And then you send post follow up to all these people that ended up not going and just really push the FOMO of like, this was a blast. Like this was an absolute blast. We want to thank everybody there. And then the flip side.
Yeah, here's an album drop with photos.
Yeah, you drop that album on them, and then you share that with all the attendees, and then you just ask them to tag you. And
do you
that's
bring photographers to these things? I'm just thinking about like, okay, of course.
But you
like then they go and they post it on their LinkedIn, and it like turns into like I was at this event, and then it like looks like they're like, okay, cool.
Network effects. Super hard network effects. People always want to share photos on their LinkedIn. They always want to talk about what they're doing, in-person stuff. They always want to look great. So you can be that tool for them. And you can find like event photographers in location for super cheap. We're talking like $150, super last minute. They're down to do it. And the ROI on that is just incredible. Like, plus you can do a whole year recap of events and just push in all these photos and be like, this is all the amazing stuff. And then you have like what I love even more
is media then for the next time that you host an event. So then it's like, this is what it looks like. And this is kind of what do they call that? Sorry, I haven't been in this world in forever where it's like, almost it's like what it looks like from the outside in, like kind of the framing of the event. There's a word for it. I can't think of it. I used to do some work in the music space, but it was basically like how we're like almost the PR angle that we're going for with this. There's more technical terms that again just haven't been in that space in forever.
Yeah. So, and then like the flip side of this too, and I'll keep saying flip side because there's a lot of different angles that you need to touch on with this. Is so say a bunch of enterprise guys come to your event, you get photographed with those guys. Over time, over the next couple of months, natural brand association will be like, hey, XYZ company works with these brands because they keep showing up, they keep talking with them. It's super obvious. They keep posting photos with the heads of growth at these companies. Like, there is this implied like, oh, are they all working with all of these guys? Like,
gotcha.
They're just everywhere.
Yep. And it's a super small community of like founders and owners of those businesses. Like they're all keeping tabs on each other and they all know each other from my experience. So it's like, the guy who owns Blue Chew knows everybody else that's in that high level of direct to consumer. So,
exactly.
Okay. So that makes sense on kind of the hosting, the knock-on effects that happen when you actually have this event, you do the media and you do the distribution. From a reach out standpoint, how are you are you cold emailing? Are you like calling? Are you texting? Or, is it a party full event that you're like inviting them to? What does that look like from a, how do you actually get these people to have interest and show up?
Yeah. I think a lot of people love Partiful. I'm a Luma fanboy. I absolutely love Luma. I think the UI is a little bit better. So I'm pushing people to a Luma directly. And then the push from that is I'm doing a cold email outreach based on location. And you'll find that trying to do a cold email outreach to offer services has a pretty low open rate, or like an okay open rate. It's not great. But if you have a subject line that's like an invitation to a party, your open rate, your open rate, it's like 80-90%. And also, if you include...
What's that subject line, like specifically? Like you're invited to X party, or like...
You're invited, and then I would also try to include that figurehead brand in there. So
Gotcha.
it would be like,
you're invited by X company to Y party.
yeah, you're invited to Liquid Death's private e-commerce dinner. That is so powerful because you just conveyed so much authority. You've just conveyed so much scarcity all in one swoop.
Yep.
Who's not going to open that?
No, 100%. So why, just to understand this a little bit deeper, like why is a company like Liquid Death, why are they sponsoring these? Like, because if it's e-commerce founders that are showing up to this, or e-commerce, heads of marketing or whatever that is, like why would they want to be involved in an event like this?
Yeah. This is, again, going back to the relationships that you have to have with these guys. So like you have to have a really intimate relationship with the head of growth at Liquid Death. And they also have to be willing to do kind of like a fireside chat, share their story of growth for the past year. Selfishly, like these guys are also building their own resumes. So you're giving them an outlet to showcase their success.
Gotcha.
Within their own community, within their industry.
Yep.
And so you're also giving them networking.
So it's a signaling platform within their community that is high value to them to have what we call it, like basically authority within. I'm just thinking about like one of the brands we're working with for Landing Cat, and like, of course she would do this, like, kind of who their CMO is. It's like a no-brainer for her to be able to stand up in front of all of these other people and do this. Especially if it's founders that are invited who are the decision makers, because then they're like, oh, how do I go snipe her, right? Or it gives her optionality to negotiate internally her salaries or leave the company and go join one of these other ones when she does that. So, and then are they taking budget like from the company? So like Liquid Death is basically like, we're taking ad budget for them to go and host this this thing. I guess like what's the internal sell that's happening there? Or is it just like that they're not even paying for this? It's just sponsored by them and like you have a speaker from that company.
Ideally, it's just a speaker from that company. Okay. They're not paying for any of it. And
so
then
you're piggybacking off the brand. Okay.
Yeah. And then you are splitting with another SaaS. Oh my
God, this is so brilliant. It's so obvious too.
You're splitting with another SaaS within the industry also, because you want that second SaaS to also push.
Yep.
Because like ideally, you're not doing all the outbound yourself.
Yep.
Like you want that second SaaS to push into it as well.
Yep.
You could get crazy with it.
Dinner. You're having, you're saying 18 people, so 166 per person is kind of what's budgeting into that. Splitting that with another company, and then you have that lead list that you're getting shared. The person that you're inviting is from a well-known brand, so that all it is for them is a speaking platform opportunity. It's an optics event for them, so that they get media showing them speaking, which makes them look better on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Okay, cool. So I'm just trying to, mirror back the incentive structure so that the audience kind of understands and sees like, here's all these layers of these things that are happening, right? That kind of combine together. Okay. And so you're doing cold outbound, the other brands doing cold outbound to this event. Do you have a cap on the amount of people that that can go to this thing? So it creates exclusivity where it's like, hey, we're only accepting 20 to this.
Damn, that's a great follow-up question. Yes. So you want to do a cap for this, but you also want to account for a potential 15% fall off of people not showing up.
Okay.
Humans are going to be humans. People are just going to have stuff come up. They're going to be like, hey, man, I can't make it. My wife's doing XYZ thing.
Yep.
Hey, man, I'm dealing with the kids tonight. I'm so sorry I can't make it.
Yep. So you're inviting like 22 to 23 people, and then you expect whatever 17 to 18 of them to show up. So
exactly.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you're getting 18 people within your ICP. That's enterprise. By the way, you're also getting them in person, and you can populate whoever you want in that room from your company. So you could also look at this and reverse the cost per demo that you're getting currently with your company. And then it's like, okay, how much is my cost per in-person demo for this dinner? So if my cost per my cost per demo at a company, hypothetically, $400, but you just talked about dinner probably costs $116 a head. So my cost per demo if I talk to all 18 of these people and make rounds and do it properly and, not be a sales guy and just like absolutely hammer
Be
them.
a human.
Be a human. That's a huge part of this is 118 for an in-person demo. And they get to know a human behind your company.
That's insane. I can't even express how, and again, I'm a little bit, all my gears are turning on like, okay, here's the applications of this.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it's so obvious. Okay, so conversion rate wise, what do you guys see on this? So like you host this dinner for whatever, 1,500 is the total cost for you. There's a lot of mental energy that's expended. I think that's the one thing to think about. And like, one thing I always talk about on the marketing side of things is like you have 3 finite resources. It's basically time, money, and mental energy. And you're basically trying to optimize for those. So it's a decent amount of mental energy, like lower cost, and then like the time component if it's travel, et cetera. What do you see the outcomes from like, okay, you host a dinner like this, that turns into, we'll say 25K in ARR. What does that look like?
Yeah, I would say your goal for close rate for this should be a quarter of the brands that have attended.
Insane. Okay.
Yeah, it's just so different because you're able to build a personal relationship
with these people. Yep, totally. And it's
so
over a
quickly.
3-hour period, and it's like, yeah. Okay.
And then, by the way, ideally, if you did this right, you're having customers in the room who are basically selling you to these people already. Yep. So if you're like talking with them and they're like, gotcha. Yeah, dude, I just don't believe you. Like, I'm sure you did. And you're like, I totally get it. Let me grab Mike. Mike is a customer. He crushed it with us. Just talk with him for 5 seconds. You pull Mike because he's in the room. You grabbed him. Yep. You invited some really good customers.
Yep.
It's not coming from you anymore. It's coming from Mike. He's been with you for 2 years. He's made $300,000 with you. And so now Mike is selling for you. You don't have to sell anymore. Just bounce out and talk to somebody else. And then follow up with them later and be like, yo, how was that conversation with Mike? He's like, yeah, it was pretty good. Mike's pretty legit. And I was like, yeah, he's an awesome guy. He's been with us for a while.
Dude, this feels just, again, one of those things that's like so obvious.
It's so obvious.
but hard also, to execute probably for most people. But there's a lot of nuance and context to this. But, we're just talking about this for e-commerce brands and stuff like that. This is not industry specific. I've thought about this a ton. You could basically duplicate this across all industries. Same playbook as long as you just have the lists. Yep.
And you can get that from
easy now with Apollo or whatever, right? Like it's like easier than ever.
It's exactly. And so you can go industry through Apollo and just basically spin up whoever you want, whatever industry you want, as long as it's in Apollo or some other list population, maybe Zoom Info.
Totally. Okay, so just got a master class basically on how to host these events.
For sure.
You mentioned when we were talking previously, just to change gears, about this like kind of arbitrage we're seeing in the TikTok space with like all these affiliates. Can you lay that out again? This audience is a lot of degenerate marketers that are always looking for kind of whatever alpha they can find. What are you seeing on the front lines in relationship to that?
Yeah, there's a total, I call it like a TikTok gremlin play right now. I'm not saying to do this. I'm not saying to do this. It's pretty like they're squeezing alpha out of this. But basically what is happening is the TikTok affiliates will find affiliate videos that are already successful. So say Goalie has videos that are already successful, organic. So they have an affiliate running on organic, it crushed. What you do is you'll then go into TikTok, download this video, wipe the metadata off the video so that TikTok doesn't realize that it's the same video. Start up a new TikTok page, dump this creative in there, and then immediately run ads on it. With your affiliate link to the product. Now you can do this and just do it with a million different products.
Totally.
It's unreal.
That is ridiculous. Okay. So we do some stuff in the TikTok space. We're trying to spin this company out that like, I don't know if I talked to you about this when we were chatting the last time, but basically we built this like a way to build out like, we'll say 10 different TikTok accounts or 100 different TikTok accounts that all look like US based mobile devices. We're using an eSIM VPN, basically logging in through that. And then you can just like go and schedule out across those. Our angle is like we've been trying to figure out like a content format that scales for these brands, whether it's e-com or whatever. But what we've seen like working right now is basically AI avatars doing some type of script, and then like it's like basically an overlay of them talking over a thing, right?
Yeah.
And once we figure out a format, like we can get these videos to get like 1,500 views a piece. I didn't even think about it as like, just take what's already working, run paid ads on the top of it. Are you seeing this just in the D2C side? So like, or is there any other places that, it's mainly that?
Yeah. I also don't recommend doing this. I mean, it's
Totally.
like it's a crazy play, but you're just like scraping through already successful organic out. And then you're just throwing affiliate
you can just
onto
go look
it.
at top TikTok shops, right? And then basically pull that, run that through it. So
there you go. And then, a TikTok page gets banned.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Cool. Let's pop up another one. It takes 5 seconds.
Totally. And then just run it. That's hilarious, man. It's so ridiculous.
The key is that you got to kill the metadata for the video.
Yep.
So
totally.
But
are there people training or teaching on this, or like how did you stumble across this?
I stumbled across this through my buddy runs a UGC company to help Shopify brands get UGC and all this stuff. And I was talking to him about TikTok, and he was like, dude, I gotta tell you about this thing that I'm seeing right now. Because people are basically doing this to his videos that are producing like super high quality TikTok UGC.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's nuts. Like, I don't like these little, I call them TikTok gremlins. These TikTok gremlins.
Totally. It's like 19-year-olds in college.
Dude, they're like skibbity riz, and then they're just downloading it, and then, it's just nuts. It like, you have to respect the hustle, but it's just mind blowing.
No, totally. There's this strategy. If you're a software founder, like think about this. If you have an affiliate program, you basically people bid on your own brand name, and then they use their affiliate. They make the ads look exactly like yours. So a lot of the times they go under the radar for the company. So like they're paying out to an affiliate that's bidding on the company's brand name. So you built all this branded search, right? This feels like the same strategy or like a really similar one where it's like they've already like built the audience, built the media. They're just like repurposing that. But anyway, always audit your affiliates to see if they're like, if the traffic is coming from Google, be like, what are the keywords that you're bidding on? Show me that show me that sheet. They will always respond with, like we bid on a bunch of keywords, and be like, no, I want like specifically the list. Otherwise you don't get the payout. And if they don't provide the list, then that means a lot of the times they're just running this play on top of your company. So, again, kind of bounce around, because there's another thing I want to talk to you about is how you guys think about affiliate partnerships and like selling through them. I think that is such a brilliant like go-to-market motion, especially for like if you're in the Shopify ecosystem and selling to like there's so many agencies that are servicing these companies. I feel like SEO is classic for this as well, as like every SEO agency and go sell this software through every SEO agency. They're basically like pitching it to their clients, right? You're in a way you're mobilizing a sales force without having to pay them like money is like how I think about it. Could you talk about how you guys kind of approach that, how you think about it, and like best practices, what you're seeing working with those relationships?
Yeah. The biggest thing is you have to talk with the agency about the education of what the platform can actually do. So they have to really have a solid knowledge of it, because they're kind of going to be selling it on your behalf. And this, again, involves the personal relationship. It can't just be like an affiliate play where you're kind of just blasting out and hoping. Like, you really should be getting on Google Meet calls or Zoom calls or whatever, talking with these guys for at least 30 minutes, running down, giving them some best practices, giving them some case study ammo, making sure that they're really well equipped to sell you to the brands that they're working with. And one of the biggest things too is you have to align with the agency so that the agency looks great. So like, for example, for us is, paid media agency comes in.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I have this cool tool. It's called LiveRecover. We can add revenue super quick. It takes 5 minutes. We're going to install it. So then after a week, paid media agency now looks awesome because they just have to send a little screenshot of the dashboard and it's like, hey, that tool that I introed you guys to just made you like $5,000 and we didn't do anything. So now you're really trying to make this agency the hero of that entire journey and make them look incredible to their brands. Like that's really the core of this. If you can do that for whatever you're trying to sell, you're going to be gravy.
No, it makes a ton of sense. Okay, so it's really like figuring out where is the symbiotic relationship from a new revenue generation by deploying you, basically. So it's like, we're a CRO agency or whatever, or
Exactly.
trying to improve, volume. This is a way for us to do that, and it's just like an easy bolt-on solution.
Exactly.
I know you talked about you've had companies be like, "Yo, can we white label this? Can we kind of hide this from our customer?" You said that was like something you weren't doing, and is there strategic reasons behind that? Like you're like, hey, we want the brand to be visible. Like we want the industry to know that, or like, why have you gone or not done that? I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing with white labeling is you have to have such a trust for who you're deploying it with, because I in a perfect world, it's just gonna be white labeled perfectly, and the customer just assumes it's from XYZ company. 99% of the time, they're going to find out the original source of actually what it is. And so you really need to have a perfect relationship with this agency in order to white label. And you have to really build that relationship for a while. Like it's really not just an overnight thing where you're like, yeah, we're willing to white label you guys and basically flush like all the brand equity we've built up for the brand down the toilet because we trust your brand equity so much.
Yeah.
That's to say, like, if Shopify were to approach us and be like, can we white label you guys? That's a different story because, Shopify's brand equity is insane. They're the most trusted person in this space. They have a great public facing image. They're amazing partners in every way. So it's like, that conversation happens and changes pretty quickly, but it really depends on who's asking.
No, that makes sense. Awesome, man. Dude, this has been incredibly valuable so far. Any other stuff you're kind of seeing from the front lines on like the just honestly from a distribution standpoint, like in relationship to SaaS, or like any of these physical other events that you've seen be successful in this, and really just like what other arbitrage are you seeing kind of on the front lines doing this type of stuff?
Yeah, I would say like a lot of people make fun of it and call it cringe all the time, but having a LinkedIn automation built out to populate these events, like Twitter's great. I love Twitter. It's awesome. But there's some people in the ICP that you're going after that just aren't on Twitter. And so, yeah, it's a little cringe. Yeah, it's like whatever. But building out an automation to target these types of ICP individuals
to
and
invite
operators
to these events, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes, by location based within LinkedIn is so amazing.
So are you doing all three then? It's like Twitter DM automation, email automation, LinkedIn automation, and then structurally, like how many messages are you sending within that? And like, and again, maybe we circle back around to this because I'm really curious about it. Like the actual copy that you're using within that message that you're sending out to them. Are you like basically like, yo, it's going to be at this location? You're going to be able to, do you even say that, or is it keeping that hidden? So it's like there's some surprise to it. Okay, fascinating.
Yeah, so you got to keep it hidden because you don't want a ton of people to show up to this event that you end up like it's too overfilled. Yeah. So like you really want to keep it hidden, and then also push the exclusivity of it. Totally destroyed that. And then you're really blasting out a ton on LinkedIn. Like you're really blasting out 30 a day.
Yeah. How
And
many do you
depending on
contacted to get that 23 that like, to fill your list up?
5,000.
5,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Within
Word.
location
Within location. Okay.
and
Word.
ICP.
Yep. Of course. Yeah.
So you're going after the perfect person if they come to this event.
Perfect. Okay. So you're seeing about a 0.004 per conversion rate on this of them basically like contact to end up actually like going to this thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Word. Nice. Okay. So keeping it hidden, does it happen like a drop then? So like when the day of the event, they get the notification, or how soon are you sending that out?
Ideally a couple days before, because the people want to look up directions and all that stuff and figure it out with the rest of their schedule. So ideally you're doing it like 3 days before. You're like,
Nice.
hey, also with that, when you push out location, some people are going to cancel right away because they're going to be like, this is like 30 minutes for me. I'm not going to this. Cancel.
Yep.
But this is why you built out that wait list. So now you can just plug somebody else in.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
cool.
now you're
Sweet.
you're trying to layer this and time this whole thing perfectly.
So talk to me about that wait list component. So you have 22 slots. You have a wait list of 30, and then as soon as people drop, or what's the volume of that look like? And this is all you're all just handling all this through Luma. I'm assuming.
Exactly. The wait list for this, if we're going with the original numbers, you're looking at like 60 or 80 people. So this is really important that you establish this wait list and are selecting the people that you really want there. Like you really are selecting, these are my top prospects. Like this is the cream of the crop who we can also get there. Also, if you get people to confirm early, you can then leverage that as follow-up for a little bit of social proof. So if you get 3 brands confirming early, they're for sure 100% going to be there. You could follow up with the social proof for your outbound and be like, just to let you know, this event by Liquid Death, we also got the head of growth at, XYZ brand. We also got the head of marketing at XYZ brand, and we got the CRM guy at XYZ brand. And hopefully those are all within your ICP and absolute hitters. Because now you've just created this super powerful outbound, like a crazy outbound of social proof.
Yep. Oh my God, dude. It's the most ridiculous. Can I tell you about events like in conferences? Because I feel like you would eat this type of world up. All right. So when I was working at Rupa Health, we were like, how do you do conferences? Right. Like, and basically got this crash course from my friend who runs this company called Stencil. But anyway, long story short, the strategy is pretty simple. Like the idea is basically a crowd makes a crowd. How do you get foot traffic to go to your booth? So that it's basically like, get people to come to you, right? Majority of people when they go to these conferences, they treat it like it's like, this very like black tie thing. What we ended up doing is we're like, how do we make it feel like a party? Like when like the booth is like literally a party. So I'm just going to like lay out all the tactical stuff and we can go deeper on each of them if it's interesting. So we basically built an Instagram trap that printed them a Polaroid that they would then like write like the theme that we did was like future of medicine. And then they would be like, what do you want to see within like the healthcare world? Right. And then we're like, hey, come get this Polaroid at the end of the event. So 2 things happen there. You have an excuse to every person walking by being like, hey, do you want to take a photo? So they stop. We'd have a line develop and a crowd makes a crowd, right? So that line develops. It naturally will make people gravitate to this thing. Simultaneously, we had music that was constantly playing. Everybody was dressed up in an outfit, like literally a matching thing. And the theme that we did was like, it was like spacesuits, right? So like, imagine 12 people at a booth, like in spacesuits, like dancing. It sounds ridiculous. But again, it feels, it sticks out like a sore thumb at these events. And so
100%.
Because of that, it creates this like gravity of inbound. So you do the Instagram trap and then you have, you give, the thing you give away is like we did a large stuffed animal because like typically these people have kids and they like want to take something home to them. So imagine like a big stuffed bear also wearing a spacesuit. It's branded, but the kicker is that it's too big for them to fit in their backpack or hide it in a bag. So they have to carry it around. And then people are like, yo, where did you get that? So that creates inbound traffic. Then we would have two people, by two, go and walk the floor. They're dressed in this ridiculous outfit that doesn't look anything, related to the industry. I mean, imagine like we were at these health conferences, right? It's like everybody's in like, basically business casual. They're walking the floor. People ask them like, why are you dressed like this? When it's two of them, it creates like, oh, this is a larger thing than just an individual. If one individual does it, it's like he's just a weirdo. If two people do it, then it's like, oh, this is something, right? Yep. This is actually a tactic that I took from this book called Swarmwise. It's the guy who invented or created the pirate party in Sweden, and then like he has all these tactical things of like, how do you create a political movement? This is one of their strategies: is like dress two people, have them look exactly the same, walk like a crowded area, and people will naturally ask them like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Right. And so anyways, do that. That creates foot traffic back to the booth. A crowd starts to develop, and then a crowd builds a crowd. And literally that's the entire like strategy to get like a ton of people to show up to this, and almost have like where you become the kind of main talking point of the event, because of all of these things, stacked and combined together. So anyway, that was like our learnings from running these these conference events. I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but that was like kind of the high level that we found to be really, really impactful. Also, we would only buy 2 badges, and then we would sneak in like 10 to 12 people to these events under the same badges. Because like if you have a badge, you just walk in, like the next person would go. Yeah, man, that was the kind of the whole strategy. But anyway.
Did you also try to prompt them to post on socials with that Polaroid?
Absolutely. I mean, they were doing it themselves, basically.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like they would take a photo of the Polaroid in front of like, and we would text them the images, so that it was basically like one of those photo booth like things that you see at like weddings. Of course, and so printed out the Polaroid, and it's like, hey, do you want us to message you or text you these images? And then it's like, yes, boom, we just got that lead, right? And then that turns into a list that you can then go and basically hit up, to do demos. What we ended up finding is that people wanted like the stuffed animal bear so much that we could be like, you can, we're happy to give you one. You just have to go through a demo. It's like 5 minutes, right? And we would talk through the platform, and then that would basically like get them like, oh, this is actually really interesting. Yeah. And then, they would have this like takeaway that they would get from us. The thing that was like the big unlock was thinking about this is like, how do you make this feel like it's a party rather than like some, like stuffy business event, right? Especially if you're a startup and you're like, I don't have any, like we had like one of the smallest booths at this thing, right? And then the conference ended up telling us like, oh, you had more foot traffic than the largest booth because we had people like, again, using all these tactical pieces, like getting them to come to the booth themselves rather than having to like wait for them to walk by. They're inbounding to us, right? Rather than us having to do outbound to get those people in and being, almost responsive or being proactive with that. So.
Yeah. Plus like, ideally, again, it all just goes back to being cool people. Now they have this cool brand perception of who you guys are.
Totally.
And like, totally. I truly think that is like half or
the
if not
biggest
more,
leverage point.
It's the biggest leverage point because people just want like the quick deal. People don't want to like play the long-term game. Like if you're just willing to invest the time and just be like a normal guy they can talk to, and maybe not talk about like SaaS the whole time. Maybe you just talk about the bears.
Whatever their interest is. Yeah.
Whatever they're doing. Like if they're building a deck, you're like, oh, cool. What's up with that? Like just have a normal conversation with them. And then you're like, by the way, we did this thing.
Do you feel like that's more important in e-commerce? Like that coolness factor? I mean, we're realizing this with like a part of what we're doing. It's like there's this element of coolness that needs to be incorporated into like your positioning, that piece. Also, I'm curious your thoughts on like, what we're doing with Landing Cat and like how you would think about going to market with it. And just high level, like what we're basically doing is like we ingest a client's product catalog. We're working specifically with fashion brands is where we're seeing the biggest impact. So think like shoes, clothing, bags, etc. And we basically ingest a product catalog. We then find all of the long tail keywords related to that entire catalog. We then go and programmatically build out landing pages for these keywords. So like collection pages, basically. We then publish those, index those, and then constantly in the background conversion rate optimization is happening so that basically the pages get more effective at creating, purchases, right?
Right.
We're starting to think about this and like I starting to communicate this to clients as like, this is just like, basically think about it as paid ads, right? Like I'm testing all these different pages and like here's the ROAS that's coming from it, but the difference is like your cost stays the constant with us, and like we'll do as many pages as you want and like constantly be cycling through these. So I'm curious, like you've been in this industry for a longer period. I haven't been in e-com since 2016. I think was like the last thing I really spent a lot, a decent amount of time there. So what should we be thinking about that we're not, just from like a kind of a go to market and like positioning the company and talking. The thing that we keep hearing is like, a lot of SEOs in this industry are like, oh, it's 6 months for any impact. And we're like, month one, you're going to make money back on this. Right. I guess how should we think about it and talk about it?
Yeah, I wouldn't, I mean, hypothetically, like if you take me and dump it into what you guys are doing, I wouldn't even go through SEOs because hypothetically you're undercutting them, and probably what they're trying to do is they're trying to push out super long time periods to their clients. I have a story for you related to this, by the way. So, sorry, I won't cut you off. I'll keep that thought, but yeah, keep going. For sure. I would look at what recently what AppLovin did for their deployment and launch throughout the entire industry and how they've positioned themselves. They are basically doing that same exact positioning where they're like, hey, I know you guys run Meta ads, I know you run Google. This is a entirely separate new channel. And you're talking basically about that and that you can test some new budget. So they did that, and then they also did, I think, like some really aggressive rollout where it was like your first 10,000 was free or something like that. So they were really, really aggressive with their implementation of this all. And then they also tapped like, I want to say like 10 or 15 really influential growth people within the space, and just were like, hey, here it is, use this, like go to market with this, and then just like share your results.
If we're talking about this as ROAS, like using that as the anchor point, is that the right way to think about? Like, it's like you're paying us X and we're getting you a 10X return on that, basically.
Exactly. 100%.
Like, what are you getting on Facebook ads? And they're like, oh, we get Y. And it's like, oh, this is a good investment. Also, we can make you more money. Just let us publish more pages, basically, is like what we're seeing. Is that the right way to be thinking about it? Or is there a different way? I mean, what we found is that like a lot of the marketers that are in this space, like in the D2C e-com world, like they're just performance marketers, right? It's like I put $1 into a thing and X comes out. Are there nuances that I'm not thinking about or that we haven't discovered yet of how they think about marketing that we should be thinking about when we talk and communicate the product?
That's exactly it. It's performance marketing, but you guys are bringing SEO. So like, there's no real incredible standout SEO solution at scale. So hypothetically, you could be that solution. So you could be a growth marketer's dream for SEO because they don't have that tool in their tool belt right now where they can be like, hey, yeah, Facebook tool pulled it out. Google Ads tool pulled it out. LiveRecover tool pulled it out. SEO tool, I don't have one.
Yeah.
But this is a nice little next tool for them where it's like, cool. And then again, dashboard, you spent $100 with us. We drove $1,200.
Yep.
And it's just like, the ROI is just so clear. Like, would you uninstall this?
Yeah.
And it's like
funny.
that's it.
Totally. totally. We're doing some tests with clients on a performance like model. And they switched over to performance, and then they're spending more money with us after the performance than they were. And they're like now being like, yo, can we actually go back to what our previous plan was? So it's been this really kind of interesting learning of like seeing how they think about it. And for us, it's also like, oh, this way to mitigate churn risk. It's like, yo, we'll 100%. Just like, you can go back to that. Like, we'll just, but you can downgrade to a performance model, and then if like always switch back to a different plan with us at some point. But anyway, I know we just came up on time, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. If people want to connect with you or chat with you, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, shoot me a DM on Twitter. I'll be there. I got nothing to do, so hit me up.
Awesome, man. We'll include that in the show notes. And thank you again for all of this. It's been incredible. So
yeah, thank you, Cody. I appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Cheers, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.